We worked with Merle for 7 years.
All right, we are in here with the Malpass Brothers.
How they are?
Glad to have y'all in here. How y'all doing?
We're doing good, buddy. Glad to be here and get to meet you in person. We've been seeing you online for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like we've both been following each other for a long time now.
Stalking each other.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Proud to have y'all in here and have y'all's numbers now so we can communicate.
That's right. Yeah, call us anytime, buddy.
No, tell me a little bit about what y'all got going on these days.
Well, we're staying pretty busy, touring about 100 dates a year, so it kind of fluctuates. And then, of course, we got our show going on RFDTV. It's in the second season, so we're real excited about that. And got a new album coming out. We're getting ready to do with Gaither Records, so we've got a lot of good things going on. Of course, it can always be better, as they say, but it's going good.
Well, it seems like y'all are hot as can be right now. Y'all got the RFDTV show and everything, and I see y'all popping up all the time on there, and keeping real country music alive, and that's what I appreciate about you fellas.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say about you too. You do a great job at that. I really appreciate people with it. The kind of music we do is only successful if we have people like you that support it and are pushing it. So we appreciate what you do.
Exactly right. Well, I appreciate that, and I think it's people like us that'll keep the genre alive. There's others in it for just the money, and we've talked about that a little bit off camera, but I think that it's folks like us that can really keep the old stories and the songs alive, and that keep the new stuff that's coming traditional.
Well, there's a lot of, as we travel across the country, and Taylor agreed, there's a lot of people, and you can tell from your podcast that there's a lot of people that love this traditional style of music. And, of course, you got a lot of up and coming artists, Zach Top, and people like that are doing well, and they're doing well because there's people that's hungry for that music. It's just not as mainstream as some of the stuff, but it doesn't mean that there aren't people out there wanting to hear it and hungry for it.
Yeah.
And, so we've been real blessed to get to travel and do the kind of music we love. Of course, it's a tough way to make a living.
Yeah.
Sure. And you said you've done all kinds of work, and Taylor and I've done mechanic work, son, when I'm home, and a little bit of everything else make it work. But it all pays off when you get on the stage,
Oh yeah, yeah. Y'all, when did y'all get y'all start?
We started. Let's see. I was 10, so that's, oh my gosh, it's been 25 years. Over 25 years ago. Yeah, we started as kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we started as babies, and then we'll see. But yeah, we started doing we were doing churches is how we started. We were doing like 175 churches a year as kids. And then when I was about 15, we started doing more country stuff. And then when I was 18, I'm sorry, I'm not saying.
No, you're fine.
But all I remember is my age. But I know when I was 18, we opened for Merle, and that's kind of where we really took a dive into like trying to more full time, which we didn't start full time till
right after Merle.
Yeah, right after Merle. We did our church thing like he was saying, and then we kind of moved into the theater. We worked with Don Helms for a couple of years, who was Hank Williams singer still. I mean, that was a great thing. And then we went from that to the Merle. We worked with Merle for 7 years. And that was really our biggest thing at that time to push us out in front of people, working with Merle and recording on his label. But like what he was saying about working, even between gigs, we were doing mechanic work, transmission work, and stuff like that. So we really had to work in man-ups.
Man, 18 years old working for Merle Haggard. How was that?
Man, it worked. We had done a show with him in a place called Rutherford, North Carolina. I don't know if you've ever been there. And I think it's isothermal community. Yeah. And we had done a show with him that night, and they invited us to come back the next night. And he had said something about, I thought if y'all come out and hang out at the ranch. And we thought nothing, whatever. We coming up. Yeah, when we went the next night, we opened for him, and he didn't see us, but the band saw us.
Yeah.
And they told Merle, and so we were invited back the next night, and luckily somebody had a camera. I think it was Brad Baggett had a camera, and we sat on Merle's bus and did. He said, "I heard you open the show," and I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "What did you do?" And I said, "Well, we do Ernest Tubb and Hank Williams." And he said, "Well, do something." And he handed me a little Rose parlor guitar he had, and I was like, "Oh, and what am I going to do now?" You know, I didn't even remember who I am, much as how to sing in front of Merle. So I did a couple songs, and then he got his telly, and he had a little practice amp, and we played probably 20 or 30 minutes before he had to go in to eat and then sound check. And this was in like September of 07. And then I went out to the ranch in November, went out again in December, and in January of 08 started touring with him. And Taylor graduated that May or June, whatever. And Merle actually called my mom and asked if Taylor could come out on the road when he graduated, which was crazy. I mean, people think but these are real people. You know, Merle was a real, genuine, good guy. I mean,
Yeah.
And he asked my parents, and of course they were like, duh, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So from that, we worked with him for, like I said, 7 years. And, I mean, he was, to me, he was my favorite all-time country music singer, solo act, singer. We loved the Dillon Brothers and stuff like that, but I was just a Merle Haggard nut.
Oh, yeah.
So, it was a big, big deal for us.
Oh, I can only imagine. I'm sure you got all kinds of stories from being out on the road with old Merle.
We did, man, and it's kind of, I look back at it, and there were times where you would, after a show, Taylor's can say the same thing. You'd be on the bus with him after a show, and he'd be listening to Lefty. We'd sit up all night. Yeah, he'd listen to music all night on the bus, and there were times you were around him so much that you forgot. You didn't forget he was Merle Haggard, but he was so normal and regular that you were like, and then it would hit you all of a sudden, like you'd be like, dang, this is I mean, even 7 years into it, it would catch you like, dang, this is Merle Haggard. This is the guy that created all this great music.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time at the ranch. His son, Benny, started the same time on the road with Merle that we did. And then we got to know Noel and Marty and Kelly and Dana. I mean, it was like a family.
Yeah.
And all the old guys were there still. Norm,
Yeah.
Biff, and Fuzzy, and Don Markham, hearing the stories and some of the stuff they had seen,
Yeah.
because Merle had calmed down at that time. Fuzzy, one time I said, what was Merle out when he was young? And he said, oh, he was a handful. And which you could see. You could see that for sure.
I'd imagine. So, what year did y'all stop touring with Merle?
Well, let's see. If we started in 08 and we did it 7 years, it must have been about.
That's pretty close to the time he died, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't, but maybe a year or so before he passed.
Yeah.
And what had happened was, our band, Malpass Brothers, had started picking up, and Merle was having to cancel every once in a while because of health reasons.
Yeah.
So it just worked out that we weren't touring with him anymore, and our band was picking up enough. But a few weeks before he passed, I talked to him on the phone, and him and Frank Moe had lined up some dates. We were going to work together some more, And I talked to him. I said, I know you're in the hospital, but you'll get better. And he said, well, I don't know about this time. And I just thought it was just, just thinking he wasn't. And then, of course, he didn't make it, of course.
Yeah.
The world lost the greatest singer in
Yeah.
the world to me. So we worked with him pretty close to right up to the end there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still keep in contact with Benny and some of the guys. Scott, the fiddle player, plays with us once in a while. And Norm, you talk to Norm. So
yeah. Yeah, Ben, he sounds just like his
man. Oh man, he's got so much talent.
Yeah. Great guitar player too.
Yeah, he's a guitar playing fool. Man. Yeah. People like him make me wonder why I even do this.
Well, I'd say don't quit. I think y'all doing something.
Well, I appreciate it, buddy. We're still trying for sure.
I think y'all are too. Y'all wearing some Canadian tuxedos right now, but y'all usually too the sharpest dress stuff.
Yeah,
y'all might come from music.
Well, that's part of the deal. We when we go on stage, we try to wear We buy the suits from Double Eight Apparel out of Los Angeles. He makes them for us, and you know, you have the rhinestones, and I believe it's really important when you go on stage to look the part. You know? Yeah,
if you look all right, then people will oversee if you make any mistake.
Yeah, they'll say, man, those guys suck, but their suit, man, those your worst shiny.
Yeah, I think that's something that country music's really missed in the past, I don't know, 20, 30 years. It's at some point a lot of the artists drops the nudie suits and the Manuel suits and all that for t-shirts and blue jeans.
Yeah,
but what's weird is every once in a while somebody will come in that you least expect to wear something like that. I saw the day Post Malone was dressed in a rhinestone suit, and I was like, okay. Yeah, it's real random though, you know. I'm like, but I mean, I respect you for dressing up.
Yeah,
I didn't expect it.
I think I saw those pictures too. That's whenever he was doing a music video with Dwight Yoakam. So Dwight probably told him, "Hey,
yeah, I understand." Yeah, I saw that too, and I was thinking. I said, "Yeah, well, you know, it's true. I mean, I guess maybe they're trying to do the newest fad or whatever, but man, I think it's just really important.
I couldn't, man. I wouldn't be able to hit a note if I went out there.
If I went out there this,
I feel naked.
And see, we've been traveling today, but for some artists, this would be dressed up.
Yeah. I do want to clarify. I wasn't talking mess on Post Malone because I did meet Post a couple months ago, and I was walking past him, and he said he had the aux cord and he was playing over his phone. He said, "Hey man, have you ever listened to this album?" And it was Waylon Live at JD's. And I said, "Well, yeah, of course I've listened to the album." He said, "That's my favorite Waylon album." So I sat there. It was almost over, and the next we put on was Best of Gary Stewart. And I said, "Well, man, who's your favorite artist?" He said, "Hank Williams." And I said, "Okay." So, well, what's your favorite song? And I can't remember which song it was he told me, but it was one of the most obscure Hank Williams songs you've ever heard of. And I said, "Well, I'm glad to see that he appreciates the old music like that and knows the old."
You know, and a lot of those guys, I feel like they do, but for some reason, the commercialized part of country music wants them to be.
I tell you who
it's really sad.
And I want to say, I go on record to say, I don't blame any artist for doing the kind of music they want to do.
Yeah.
And there should be a place for all that music on the radio, modern radio.
Yep.
And with that said, there should also be a place for the kind of music we do on modern radio.
Exactly.
That's where my problem is every artist should be able to do the kind of music they want to do. I guess my problem is more with the industry than it is the artist, you know. Just like Waylon and them guys, you know, when they came along, of course, they were new. You know, that was a little bit, what we got coming, you know, a little rockish for the time period.
Right, yeah.
But you still heard people like Buck Owens, who was just as twangy country, you know, as you could get on the radio, along with Waylon, who was a little more outlawish. I mean, but they played everybody, but it doesn't seem that way now. You know, there's kind of I guess the industry's got their hands in it too much. I think they've kind of taken away the creativity of each artist, realizing each music has its place on modern radio. It is my feeling. Do you agree with that?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Like, and I
feel like you don't agree.
I do. I do agree. And what's sad to me, and I hope nobody takes offense to this, but what's sad to me is I look at people like Waylon Jennings and guys like that Nashville, at that point in time, they kind of pushed them away when they were.
And now
this town's built on that.
Yeah.
And now Nashville's like, oh man, Merle, Waylon Jennings, the savior, you know.
Yeah.
But like, well, man, y'all pushed you away when he was doing his best work. You know, and Hank Williams the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, Nashville's kind of notorious for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just Nashville's notorious for saying if something ain't good, it's gonna be about the best you've heard in a long time. I mean, it has nothing to do with the fans. I do think it's just the industry. A lot of times they're looking at dollars instead of
Exactly.
Well, I think Nashville's biggest problem for a long time, I mean, going way back, is they find something, when something new pops up, instead of just appreciating that, they try to just do the whole cookie cutter thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's find another artist that can do it. And another one, and another one, another one. And you see it all the way back to Nashville Sound. They tried to do it to Waylon.
They did.
Then it comes all the way up to Bro Country. You know, you had Luke Bryan come on the scene and be successful with it. Well, okay, now let's get this guy and this guy and this guy until it's just everybody gets tired of it. Let's move on to the next thing. You know,
It's exactly like when you go downtown and there's 4 gas stations on one corner.
Yeah.
It's just like you said that well this guy can't make it now because you've created another one just like it across the road, and it's just like you said. Yeah, they do that. That's very true.
Yeah.
The big is hot, and then they just
The biggest hope that I had a few years ago for country music was Charlie Crockett.
Yeah.
I come into town one time and this picture was up on the side of Hall of Fame, and I was like, here we go. We're going to get somewhere now.
Yeah.
You know, and like now I feel like I hadn't heard as much about that in town. That kind of made me sad. But I love his music. I mean, I think his stuff's great.
Yeah.
And he introduces a lot of young people to what our music is.
Right. Well, I think a good thing about today, you know, if this was all taking place 20, 30 years ago, it'd be a lot tougher on folks like us. But with nowadays with the internet and streaming and stuff, you can really find your fan base, and
you can.
that's true. Through that, you don't really need all that stuff that you might have needed 30 years ago, you know, because we're seeing a lot of guys who are just building it on their own. It wouldn't surprise me if Charlie Crockett called the Hall of Fame and said, "Hey, scrape my picture off of there."
Yeah. You know, you're right. And I'm a old soul. I love the old, old music, old cars, all that. But you're right as far as technology. I mean, if you want to find this kind of music, it's on your phone. You can go right on your phone. Yeah. I mean, it's right there and off. And I think that's why we're seeing such a big turnover. A lot of young people are getting into this stuff. And then people like you, I mean, doing what you're doing, a young guy on there with a Waylon Jennings hat, and they're like, oh, what is this? And next thing I know, you're introducing them to Chris Christopherson or Waylon or whoever, you know what I'm saying? That's important. The internet is really.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, there's definitely the naysayers of the people who don't like, but I joked when I first started coming to Nashville a while back, you can go down Music Row and see the buildings trembling because they didn't know what to do because of social media and
yeah, that's true.
You know, and radio too. I was talking to a fella today. I won't name his name, but he's a big guy in radio, and he was telling me about how poorly the big radio stations are doing right now. Just because people don't want to listen to the same song.
Well, that's
over again.
You know, I think we've, as a society, we got to the point, and I think we may be getting away from that some in the music, but you get to a point where somebody tells you something's good so many times a day that even if you don't think it is, before long you're going, oh yeah, this is good. This is what I'm supposed to like.
Yeah.
And the internet has given you the freedom to go, well, hey, I like this. You know, that's really important for you.
Yeah, because I can remember in a time whenever I was young, or well, I'm still young, but I mean younger, I'd hear a song on the radio, and it may not even be country. It may not be country, but it was like, I can't think of things.
You hear it 15,
but it was terrible. I hated it. And then like by the 15th time, you're sitting there, before you know it, you're humming with it. I'm like, oh no. Because, you know, it's happening. But you know what I mean? It's weird.
Well, that's like they said, you can feed people chicken or feed them rabbit and tell them it's chicken, and tell them long enough, they'll start believing it's chicken. You know what I mean? And that's not, like I say, that's not taking away from any type of music, but I think it should be all types of music on modern radio for sure. And I think that's why internet radio and stuff like this is doing so well.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know much about like what's going on with Sirius and stuff, but I would assume they're still doing all right because you can tune in on there and listen to whatever kind of.
Oh yeah,
I know in my truck I never leave Willie's Roadhouse.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, and me being the people, I always think about other people. I think I ought to listen to the FM radio or the AM, and so people, they're still getting to, but I don't know. I don't know with that same sentence. That same sentence, I don't want to listen to.
I go, well, they're okay. They're not hurting them. They got number one. I'm going to turn back over to Duke guy.
Well, tell me a little bit about y'all's TV show. How'd that come to be? And
well, we met Patrick, who owned RFD, and through a friend of ours, and Richard Childress, and he's involved in racing from North Carolina, and so he was friends with Patrick, and that all we met that connection, and Patrick was interested in doing a show, and we got the ball rolling, and of course Patrick passed away a week or so before the show aired, and but we felt like because of Larry's Diner that was on RFD that had done so much for our career and so much for so many people, that RFD was a huge market for traditional country fans.
Yes.
It's the only place where you can go and see it and hear, and a lot of these artists, they were on the Diner all the time. And so we knew that, and Marty was not filming anymore, and his show was great, Marty Stewart's show.
Oh, yeah.
So we wanted to do something to fill that slot and have the Porter Wagner vibe, but have our own touch as well, like his show had.
Yeah.
So Tracy Pitcock's Heart of Texas Records, he's got a great museum. He brought in all these singers' jackets and memorabilia to use in the background, and it just turned into something that's really been cool for us to do, because we're introducing our own music, but also we're having guests like Gene Watson, and who's another great, amazing, Mo Bainey, Lori Morgan.
Yeah, it's a lot. To me, every taping is an emotional experience.
Yeah, it is
because you're sitting there and you're like, here I am. I used to listen to these people my entire life.
Now we're back,
and we're back, and they're here because we invite them. That's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be able to stand inside Lori Morgan.
And they're so approachable, man. The older artists are very approachable. There's no, like we were talking about earlier, you got to go through this to get to this guy. It's us. You got their phone number, you call them, and they're nice, and they're approachable, and they realize the fans are the reason for
You're the only person that I really know that's really hard to get up with. I had to go to.
It's only cause
I had to go.
It's only cause it says Taylor Mouthless calling, so I got. No, but really, that's I know. There's so many of those artists there, and they're all approachable and great artists. And I mentioned Gene Watson, but man, what a singer! And he needed to be on TV to see how good that guy still sings.
Ought to be in the Hall of Fame.
I agree 100%. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I was about to say, if we get into that, we'll be here all night.
There's so many that need to be in the Hall of Fame, and that's another one of those things, I have no idea how that works, what you have to do to get in there, because when you look at people like the Wilburn Brothers or Jeannie Seeley or Gene Watt, just like, hey, why are they not in there?
Johnny Paycheck,
yeah.
Which I know that's probably, partially like David Allan Coe, partially at the fault of their own a little bit, but I think it's all politics.
It is.
That's beyond it's all politics in this town.
Because those artists, man, they were just being themselves.
Yep.
And they were fighting the system back then. So, Johnny Paycheck, man, what a singer.
Oh, one of my...
I was listening to him today, in fact. Real Mr. Heartache.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man.
I know my listeners are probably tired of hearing me tell the same story over and over again, but when I was 3 years old, this back in the 90s, I asked for it for Christmas, a Sony Walkman and a Johnny Paycheck's Greatest Hit cassette.
Oh, that's a good combination.
Yeah, I burnt that thing up, man. I love Johnny Paycheck.
I heard Merle tell a story one time, Taylor problem. And you remember one about Johnny being in the lobby?
Mm-hmm.
Said they were at this hotel. You know how Johnny was all wiry. Probably no telling what he was doing at night.
Yeah.
And they said that one of the people at the front desk called Merle's room and said, there's a guy down here that wants to see you. And said he's taken his hat off and put it on about 15 times, and he can't stand still. And Merle says, "Yeah, a little wire he got." I said, "Yeah." He says, "Johnny Paycheck, send him up." Well, I mean, it's so true. You know, I thought that was a cool story, man. Yeah, Johnny Paycheck was a true outlaw, man.
Oh, you know, well, speaking of stories, one of my favorite stories here and told was one about Johnny Cash. He said I bought in the hotel. They were not standing like this on. It's like a lodge.
Mm.
And he said he walked in, he was standing like checking in, he heard somebody go, "Hey, hey, hey." He said he couldn't find it, and he went up here. And he looked, and Johnny Cash was laying on one of the beams. It was like beanies, like over the lobby. He said he was laying up there. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm just sitting up here watching people." Like, figure weird.
Yeah, that was probably.
But I thought that was a great.
I tell you something. See, you like crazy stuff.
Funny, love crazy.
You remember the time, Merle, we went to the vintage clothes shop with Teresa went with us?
Oh,
there's a vintage clothes shop, and Merle, we had some time to kill, and somehow Teresa talked him into getting off the bus to go because he didn't get off the bus. And we went in there, and they had this long like overcoat. And so Merle put it on, and by that time, some people came in, and they knew who he was. And instead of thinking to say hey to him, he just froze like a mannequin. And it was the weirdest response. He went, and the people were just looking at him. And he stood there for it seemed like 20 minutes, but it was only a few minutes. It was the funniest thing. That was just showing how real he was. I mean, just messing with people like that. It was just funny. I'll never forget that. Jay, but like an album cover, he went.
Oh man, that is funny. Well, what y'all got coming down the pipeline?
Well, we got a brand new album. Of course, we grew up doing gospel music. You know, Dillon Brothers, a lot of Dillon Brothers gospel, and we just signed with Gaither Music. We're going to be doing a live album taping in May. So I'd like to invite you to that too.
Oh, I'd love to come.
We're going to be taping that, and Ben Isaacs is producing it, which we're super excited to have him doing that. So it'll be a lot of traditional gospel stuff, you know, that we grew up, the Dillon Brothers, a lot of their songs will be included with that. And it's kind of cool because our grandfather on my dad's side ran a little bar and played country music. And then my mom's dad was a preacher and played gospel music. So we got it from both sides, I guess. So it's kind of cool to get to do this album.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sure our roots, you know.
Yeah, I'd love to come out and watch that. That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, we'd love to have Zan to be heavy as a guest. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, you got some tours coming up, I'd imagine, huh? Y'all be on the road?
Yeah, we leave tomorrow morning for Texas.
Yeah, this is our Road of Memories tour, is what we're calling it. If I'd asked that, they said, y'all need a name for your tour. So one of our songs on our last album was Road of Memories. That's what we wrote. So we called it the Road of Memories tour.
It's easier to keep up with years that way.
It is, yeah, 2025. Yeah.
Yeah, well, do y'all have a website? Where can folks find y'all to see where they can?
We do. We got Facebook, of course, and then the MalpassBrothers.com. And all our dates will be posted on there. We got TikTok and Instagram, all that good stuff. And
we got some stuff on YouTube.
A bunch of YouTube channels. So we got a lot of stuff they can check us out on. And all our dates will be posted. They're still coming in, you know. So, yeah. Make sure you check us out on there. And we love to see folks there all across the country.
Yeah. Yeah. If any of you are unfamiliar with the Malpass Brothers, you're missing out big time, and definitely go check out their socials and their website. Catch them on the road. It's the real deal country music, traditional country music, the stuff that ought to be playing on the radio and will be soon. We appreciate y'all for listening, and just be sure to support these fellas, and thank y'all, and we'll catch y'all on the next one.
Thank you, buddy. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank y'all for coming.